How we doing, folks? You are watching live from the studio, the Daily Edition. My name is Jimmy Selesky, your host. We are just coming off of quite a run so far this week, I gotta say. What the hell was I talking about yesterday? If anybody has not checked out the Tuesday show yet, we discussed yesterday whether or not aliens could be spiritual entities. Answer, inconclusive, to say the least. Are aliens, angels, and demons? Is the devil an alien? I don't know. Neither do you. So maybe it's worth watching. I did actually generate the thumbnail for that using Google AI. Apparently, as long as you don't ask for a white alien, it will give you anything you want. I said, generate me an image of an alien angel in outer space. And Google was like, here you go. And I was like, it was good. It was like, this is great, dude. I don't know how many jobs this just cost our country, but that was convenient. So maybe I'll be AI generating stuff from now. Maybe I'll just AI generate this show. Might get more views. Folks, I want to talk about some things today. Primarily, I want to talk about the Mandela Effect a little bit. We hear about that all the time. That is one of the most interesting things, I think, in my life. Like, it's one of those things that I know about, I hear about, and I sometimes enjoy talking about, but it's never really compelled me or intrigued me that much until now. I had this brought across my desk earlier today. I posted a schedule for my music this week. I do play music for a living, for those of you just visiting the channel. I play all around Maryland, mainly the Baltimore area. And this week I am playing at CNR, Cowboys and Rednecks, right in Towson, my hometown. And that's a country bar. So I did a country themed schedule. And I used Woody from Toy Story. I did some editing, using the Toy Story font to type in my schedule for the week. And I thought it looked really good. You know, it's like Woody leaning up against a post, like the Toy Story character, with like a blue sky in the background, the Toy Story font with my schedule. It's high quality. Maybe I'll even pull it up. You guys can see what I'm talking about. I think you deserve to see what I'm talking about. Nobody liked it. Nobody liked my schedule. I don't mean like nobody liked it, but like nobody double tapped it at all. But like, look at this. This is pretty good, right? What's wrong with that? You know? And I made the caption, "There's a snake in my boot." You see that there? That's the caption. There's a snake in my boot. Even that wasn't enough to get the likes pouring in. That's why I always hide my likes on Instagram, by the way. That's a fun little trick. It's amazing how many people don't know this trick. For the longest time in social media, first of all, we didn't have likes. If you remember Facebook and MySpace back in the day, especially MySpace never had likes, I don't think. Facebook, when it first started out, there was no such thing as liking a post. You either inspired someone to comment on it, or there was no visible way to know that anybody actually enjoyed or engaged with your content. You know? That, looking back on it, I think the invention of the like is probably one of the most groundbreaking advancements in internet since the internet. Genuinely. I mean, imagine that. Sometimes you make a post and like it doesn't bear a response. It doesn't need a response, but people laughed at it. They liked it. Back then, you would literally somebody would have to comment like LOL just to express that they enjoyed your post. It doesn't need a response. You're just saying something funny or something interesting or whatever. And there was no way to know if anybody actually liked it. And now there is. So Facebook invented the like, and then they kind of even amped it up even more. Now you can specify like, did you like this? Did you love it? Were you sad about this? Do you care about this? Are you wowing about this? Or did you just laugh? So you have all these different options to select in order to avoid having to actually say something to someone. The point of this was the Mandela Effect. The Mandela Effect described best is a type of false, this is according to Google's top result, a type of false memory that occurs when many different people incorrectly remember the same thing. It refers to a widespread false memory that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s. Memories are not always precise recordings of events. So there's several instances of this in popular culture. The reason we're talking about it is because a good friend of mine and an avid listener of the show, the podcast and the Daily Show, Jordan Levine, Mr. Jordan Levine, check him out, by the way. Type him in on Instagram. He does all kinds of stuff, graphic design. He designed that pineapple hat thing. Where is it? Oh, here it is. This pineapple hat, I think that's like his logo for his stuff. And let me see what his handle is, by the way. If you ever need anything done here. Yeah, check him out. Jordan Levine Design, at Jordan Levine Design. That's JordanLevine Design on Instagram. You'll know it's him when you see a thumbnail of what appears to be like, you guys ever see that 1980s music video, Take On Me, the Aha video? Take on me. And they're like in a music video of like pencil sketchings. This is like if he was in that music video. So it's a pencil sketch of himself. I like it. I dig it. Shouts out Jordan Levine Design on Instagram. But anyway, he DM'd me today on my Instagram and said, because I had written, there's a snake in my boot. That's the way I remembered it. And he says, boots, parentheses, Mandela Effect. To which I replied, WTF, to which he liked. He double tapped it. You look it up? I said, yeah, I did. I can't believe it. Pretty sure the Mandela Effect occurs when the public all subconsciously decides they like the other way better. That's what it feels like. He says, that's interesting. I think the logo ones are actually the company changing them and pretending they didn't. But ones like this are a little weirder. So those are two conflicting theories, not conflicting, but those are two kind of like separate theories of how this phenomenon occurs. There's a lot of different explanations. Sometimes what he describes is the correct thing. Sometimes these companies literally do just change it and never say anything about it, and then people think one thing. This actually occurred recently on the podcast when we were examining Miller High Life. Eric came in with a Miller High Life, and the logo was like something with like a witch on a broom or something. I was like, is this always what the logo on Miller High Life on like the bottleneck part was? And he was like, yeah, I think so. And I was like, wait a second. And then I looked up and I realized I had an old bottle of Miller High Life that I'd never opened on purpose on my shelf over there to like commemorate like episode, maybe even 1. I think that's from episode 1. And we just saved the last one and put it on the shelf. And then we looked at it and it's a completely different logo. But there would have really been no way for us to know that they had changed it if I didn't have a reference from 8 years ago with the old logo. I guess you could have Googled it, but you know, before that was a thing, you were pretty much screwed. So that is a thing. But I had always remembered the line from Toy Story when Woody goes, "There's a snake in my boot." I always remember it as snake in my boot. First of all, it makes more sense. How is a snake in both of your boots? There could be multiple snakes in each boot. Like there's a snake in this boot, there's a snake in that boot, but then that would be, there are snakes in my boots. There's 2 boots and 2 snakes. How is one snake in both boots? I guess if it's a really long snake, then one could say there is a snake in my boots. Maybe even boots doesn't have to be just 2 boots. It could be all of his boots. Just imagine Woody has like a whole shoe rack of boots, a boot rack, and one snake is in all of them. There is one snake in all of my boots. That is certainly not the line. But this is the line.
There's a snake in my boots.
Whoa!
There's a snake in my boots.
They really emphasize the S on that too. It's not even like a subtle S, like, there's a snake in my boots. It's like the snake joins in to say the S, because that is the only letter that a snake can say. I simply didn't remember that. And I guess that's the point. Because whereas some things are examples of companies literally changing it, i.e. this example I will show you here, this is Snow White. So this is a very famous example of the Mandela Effect because everyone remembers the line from Snow White being, mirror, mirror on the wall, blah, 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 all. Everyone remembers the whole line. Only some idiots like myself at least remember that part. Mirror, mirror on the wall. This is something I sometimes say to myself in daily life, in public, as a joke. I didn't say it was a great joke, but it is one of the various little bits that I like to perform in my daily life. But this is the actual line from the movie.
See thy face.
What wouldst thou know, my queen?
Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest one of all?
Really? Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest one of all? First of all, evil witch. I'm not going to lie. If I had to pick between Snow White or the evil witch, I'm going evil witch all day. You know? Not just because she's got like a feisty personality, but she's like equally as fair. Because apparently that used to be a thing. Back in the day, they had like completely different beauty standards. You wanted to be pale as all get out. You know, now everybody wants to be tan. Not as tan as we wanted to be in like the 2000s. Not like Jersey Shore tan. But you want to have some color to yourself. You want to at least be a person of color. Not a person of color, just a person of tan. A person of tan. You don't want to be the fairest one of all. The fairest one of all? You're the palest person I know? You're not allowed to have literally any political opinions if that's the case. You got to at least have some color in your skin. I mean, come on. Not Snow White and not this woman either. They were equally fair. I don't see what the problem was. They could have both gotten along just fine. I don't really remember the plot. But anyway, magic mirror on the wall? Clearly that's not the line. Snow White movie? How did the movie mess up its own line? And the trick is, they did. Because in all the original books and everything else, they do say mirror, mirror on the wall. For whatever reason, some 1940s, 50s hipster douche PA was like, dude, you know, we should say magic mirror on the wall. And they were like, why? Isn't it mirror, mirror on the wall? It's like, yeah, but I don't know. I just think it's more like, why would you say mirror, mirror on the wall? It's a magic mirror. She's talking to it. And they're like, all right, I guess you're right. This is the 50s, a time of progress. We're almost going to allow black people to use the same water fountain as us. Let's innovate a little bit. Magic mirror on the wall. Well, how'd that pan out? America? Talking about the water fountains. Just kidding. How did it pan out that we change it to magic mirror? Well, I tell you what, it didn't matter. It didn't matter because what I believe to be the true effect of Mandela effect is that people will remember the best version or the version that makes the most sense to them in their own heads, regardless of what actually happened. So in the case of Snow White, that is an example of people remembering the book going mirror, mirror on the wall, even though probably far more people saw the movie than read the book. I know. Only your really awesome, intelligent friends, the book was better friends. Has there ever been by the way, just real quick sideways. I know this show is like 90% sideways, but can just once one of those people just admit that maybe there has been a movie that was better? Is it always the book was better? Is every band's less popular stuff their better stuff? I'm starting to think you guys are capping. I'm starting to think you guys just want an excuse to say that you did read the book or that you do listen to the deep cuts from that band. That doesn't mean it was better. Okay? There's plenty of examples that I was about to say I can think of, but I can't because I haven't read that many books. But I can almost guarantee that if you make a good movie, that is better than a good book. I'm sorry, it just is. A bad movie is not as good as a good book, but a good movie, God, so much better than a good book. You can watch it with other people. You can kick back and relax. More people see it, so you can talk about it with more people. It takes 1/80th of the time to absorb the story. There's nothing wrong with movies, guys. And there's nothing wrong with popular songs from bands. We get it. You listen to their other stuff, but there's probably a reason this song is popular. In some cases. Anyway, that concludes Side Tangent F so far in this episode. People, even though probably less people read the book, the line "Mirror, mirror on the wall" was so much better, so much more legendary, that it didn't matter if they put "Magic Mirror on the Wall." I can't even say it right because it sucks. It doesn't even sound right in the movie. People were just like, yeah, whatever. I'm ignoring that. In fact, I'm literally not even going to absorb that into my memory. That was so stupid. That was so stupid. I don't even remember how stupid it was because I don't remember that happened. That's a next level of stupid. And that is an example of that. The Woody thing is like, again, that has always been the line. There's a snake in my boots. But that didn't make sense. And so when people remember it, they go, there's a snake in my boot, because that makes sense. So their mind just corrected reality for reality's sake. They were like, look, I get that this happened, but history, you kind of messed up by being dumb. So we're going to reinvent it. Another very popular example of this, think right now. Picture the cartoon Mickey Mouse in your mind. You picturing him? Ho-ho, ho-ho. Like, maybe like doing one of those Mickey Mouse things. Ho-ho. Or any version of Mickey Mouse. Just picture the classic Mickey Mouse. Now, in what you're picturing, does he have suspenders or no? So obviously you're picturing a black mouse, Mickey Mouse, the big smile, and he's got, the red shorts probably is what most people remember, the red shorts. But I'm asking you, in your picture, does Mickey Mouse have suspenders or does he not have suspenders? Just like coming off of his shorts, going over his shoulder. So keep that image in your mind. This is Mickey Mouse. No suspenders. I feel like, and apparently this is a common example of this Mandela effect, is I feel like most people remember Mickey Mouse having suspenders. I kind of did. If you were to ask me like an hour ago before I started deep diving into this subject, I would have said, yeah, I'm pretty sure Mickey Mouse has suspenders. But he doesn't. But here's the thing. He does have these kind of white dots here that almost imply suspenders. Like that's where they would button. And so again, this is an example of kind of like Mickey Mouse should have suspenders. He has all the other components of suspenders. He's got the buttons that the suspenders would button over. It would kind of be like cooler if he had suspenders. Be a lot cooler if he did. And so our mind just paints suspenders on when we picture Mickey Mouse. It doesn't matter that he never had them because it would just make more sense if he did, and that's all that matters. The Mandela effect, in my opinion, is sometimes an example of the thing actually changing and nobody finding out that it changed. But more often than not, much like in the example of Mandela himself, which the entire thing is based off of, the idea that many people believe or think that they remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 80s, but he didn't. When did Nelson Mandela die? Death. He died in 2013. What? See? Again, this is an example. It would be cooler if Nelson Mandela died in prison. He's this fighter for human rights. He gets arrested in South Africa. He goes to jail. He becomes a humanitarian legend, whatever. And just like, I hate to say it, but, the fact that Martin Luther King was assassinated, the fact that John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and it just kind of like cements that legendary status because you never get to like see them grow old and like have a completely unhinged take on something happening now where people are like, yo, JFK just kind of went off on Palestine or something like that. Like, we don't know. We don't know what these people would think now, It's almost a blessing. It's more a curse, obviously, but it's almost kind of like there's no better way if you're a musician to cement in history that you're going to sell a lot of records than die young. Just die young. Nobody ever has to see you old and fat playing weird concerts that suck and you're over the hill and it's kind of pathetic because you're still trying to hang on to what you used to have when you were in your prime. That completely skipped over. You die young and people only ever remember you as the cool young guy. Kurt Cobain, Janis Joplin, most overrated singer of all time. Amy Winehouse is another one that I'm sorry. I'm not convinced Amy Winehouse would be the legendary status, in the legendary status that she currently occupies if she had not died and been part of the 27 Club. I'm sorry. I was alive at that time. I remember her having a couple songs. I do not remember her being this like groundbreaking artist. Like, she was nowhere near the level of like Taylor Swift or really any current pop star, Harry Styles, anybody that I can think of. She was not even like on that level. Like, even at that time, bands like Maroon 5, who else was out in the early 2000s? Like, whatever. You name a band that was like semi-popular in the early 2000s, all the emo bands, Fall Out Boy, whatever. Like, I feel like all of them were more popular than Amy Winehouse, but Amy Winehouse died. I'm not taking anything away from Amy Winehouse. I'm just saying, like, I do think that the dying prematurely thing really helps. Jim Morrison, have you ever actually listened to The Doors? They suck. I hate to be the one that says it, but The Doors suck. First of all, very good looking guy, Jim Morrison. His voice sounds nothing like what you think it would. That's actually an example of the Mandela Effect. An example of the Mandela Effect is remembering that The Doors were good, because that's a false memory. The Doors suck. How old were you when you realized that The Doors being good was the Mandela Effect? The guy's sitting there. He looks like this, like, hot, skinny, Jimmy Page, what's it called, guy. And then you hear him say, oh, I was down. Oh, yeah. He sings like a 60-year-old. What was going on with that? I'm sorry. Mandela Effect. I saw a preview for a movie they're making about Amy Winehouse, and this morning, actually, right after I got done talking to Jordan, in the DMs, it go down in the DMs. And all I could think was, I'm not convinced this biopic would be getting made if she was still alive. Obviously, it wouldn't, because there would still be more to talk about, but you get my point, that it would have been made at any point, They're not making a biopic about Michelle Branch, perfectly fine, decently popular singer from that time period who's still alive, doing fine. They're not making a movie about her. Why? Because she's still alive. She had a couple hits. She got out. Amy Winehouse had a couple hits. She didn't get out. Now we got to watch a movie about her. Sorry to say it, guys. But anyway, Nelson Mandela, he doesn't have that cool civil rights thing, Martin Luther King, JFK thing where he gets John Lennon thing where he gets assassinated. And now, oh shit, this guy died. That Jimi Hendrix, he's dead. I wonder what could have been. No, he dies in 2013 at the age of 95. That's too recent to have died for us to think it's cool. I don't know. 2013 is too recent. I was old enough to drink in 2013. And Nelson Mandela was alive. I could have had a drink with Nelson Mandela legally, not in jail. So yeah, I think that the public thought it would be cooler subconsciously if he did die in jail in the 80s. And so that's what we just decided happened. And then Nelson Mandela was alive for like another 30 years. And we were like, what? No, you're not alive, dude. What are you talking about? Who are you? Nelson Mandela? Dude, you died in the 80s. Oh, you didn't die in the 80s? Then why do I remember you died in the 80s? That's what I thought. Nelson. Nelson! That's the same guy who does, There's a Snake in My Boots. Tom Hanks does Woody's voice as well. And one final Mandela effect for you. The Mandela Effect. Monopoly guy. Think of the Monopoly guy, picture him. Obviously the top hat. Obviously the big bag of money. Ha 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 ha. Mr. Moneybags. The pants, the shoes, the suit, the vest. And on his face, you got the big mustache. Oh, yeah, baby. And of course, you got the... Wait a second. The Monopoly guy had a monocle, right? He definitely had a monocle. When you think of like the Monopoly guy, like the rich guy, you think of the monocle. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is the Monopoly man? You've got to be kidding me. No monocle? This guy's just raw dogging the world with his eyes? And he's that rich? This guy is that rich in the 1900s or whatever he's supposed to be from. And you mean to tell me he doesn't have some type of uneven vision impairment in one of his eyes? All rich people from that era had one semi not as good eye, I guess. Right? That's the only way to explain the monocle, right? Did everyone's, people still wear glasses. So like vision impairment hasn't gone away. But I guess at some point our eyes were like, all right. If we're going to be bad, we're going to both be bad. We're not just going to have like the old school 1800s thing where like only one of us is bad. And that killed the monocle industry. I don't know what's going on with that. You know? Monocles are unnecessary now, but they didn't used to be. If you were rich, you needed a monocle and a pocket watch. Everything on you when you were rich back in the day was some sort of circular object hanging from your body like a chain. You had the pocket watch in the pocket with a chain. What time is it? Let me tell you. Well, you think I'm going to take up my wrist with the watch? No, it's in my pocket. You know why it's in my pocket? Because that's also where I keep my money, because I'm rich. Monocle. Oh, 1 second. I can't see you in this particular eye. Boom. Oh, how does it stay on my face? I just kind of wince down on it. That was cool. The Monopoly guy didn't have it. Everyone remembers the Monopoly guy having a monocle. But he did not. Exhibit A, once more, no monocle. And that, my friends, is the Mandela Effect. Because again, we want to believe. We really want to believe that this obvious character that should obviously have a monocle has a monocle. Everything else about this character's situation implies a monocle. He's rich. He's got the top hat. He's got the money bag. He's got the old school suit. He's got the old school handlebar mustache. Everything about this character necessitates a monocle. That is the full old school rich banker guy archetype. And the fact that Monopoly had the gall or the oversight to not give him a monocle, the public said no, thank you. No, I don't care if you draw a monocle on him or not. The Monopoly guy has a monocle in my mind, and that's what it is. So in closing, folks, we have once again solved another issue on the Live from the Studio Daily Show. We seem to be solving issues at a rate of 1 per day. It's truly impressive. And today we have zeroed in on Mandela Effect. That's one more thing you can chalk off your list of things you want to solve in life. The Mandela Effect is sometimes the company changing the logo or the line or whatever we're talking about, kind of like without telling anyone. And maybe we remember it differently because it actually did used to be different in the context of like Snow White, for example, like we discussed. That's an example of that. That is sometimes the case. A company logo that changes slightly. There's plenty of, if you Google like Mandela Effect for like company logos, there's a lot of that because in a lot of cases, the logo now doesn't have some key component that we all remember from our childhood or years past that they did have. And now our mind just refuses to like absorb the fact that it no longer exists. But that's not really a Mandela Effect necessarily. That's kind of like, oh, you got extremely used to this thing and then we changed it and now your mind still remembers it as that thing because that's how you remember it because you haven't probably really paid attention that much to change it in your mind. Like one of the stages of grief is denial. And I always say like denial, when you truly understand, like when you're going through like true grief, you understand what denial actually means. It's not what you think it means. It's not like you're literally walking around like, no, my grandfather didn't die. He didn't die. No, he didn't. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You're saying he did? No, he didn't. When he obviously died. That's not what denial is. Denial is your mind's inability to actually absorb or process fully a major loss. Like it doesn't really fit into the back of your mind yet. You have to like remind yourself that like this person died or you're broken up now with your girlfriend or boyfriend that you were dating for years because your mind has spent so long. In the case of like a death in the family, you've existed your entire life, with your grandfather, let's say, being alive. That's always been a part of your life. It's always been in your brain. Like, yeah, that's my grandfather, blah, 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 blah. And then when they die, it's like this sudden shift, like out of nowhere, that completely changes your like background autopilot mode. It doesn't fit in yet. So if somebody comes up to you and asks you like, hey, I heard about what happened, you obviously acknowledge he's dead. But if you're not thinking about it, your brain hasn't fully absorbed it yet. And so it's kind of like you like are reminded of it several times until it finally latches on into your like subconscious that this is reality. And that is what denial is, the process of that. In much the same way, if it's that hard to absorb something that close to you, if something like a Taco Bell logo or a line from a movie or some type of thing like that is already locked in your brain, it's not going to be easily shifted, considering that you don't really actually care that much. It's just going to be what it is. So that type of Mandela Effect is like whatever. That's obvious. But what I find to be the more fascinating version of Mandela Effect that we're discussing now is the idea that some things are just supposed to be a certain way and they would be better, they would be cooler if they were, Matthew McConaughey style. And everyone just kind of collectively agrees on that without ever really discussing it. And that's how we remember these things as a culture. Everyone on subconscious level just felt like it would be a lot more fitting and cool if Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 80s after fighting for the rights of South Africans and ending apartheid. And so the fact that he didn't die in prison in the 80s and lived to be 95 and died in 2013, like 10 years ago, that's, I don't know. We just collectively were like, yeah, no, I like the other thing better. We all just collectively decided Mickey Mouse had suspenders because that would make more sense and it seems better. So the fact that Mickey Mouse doesn't have suspenders, this is a fictional character. So Disney got us 90% of there, 90% of the way there. And then we took it from there and said, hey, you know, whatever, Disney, like you guys got us 90% of Mickey Mouse, but we'll take it from here. He's got suspenders. I don't care if you say he has suspenders. He has suspenders. You know? I don't care if you say Woody says there's a snake in my boots. We've decided that there's a snake in my boots. That makes more sense. It's a better line. That's how we're going to remember it. And of course, the same thing with Monopoly Guy. Yeah, you guys honestly completely forgot the monocle. Not you decided not to, you forgot the monocle because this is how it's supposed to look. And that kind of brings up a deeper conversation, almost somewhat flirting with our topic from yesterday, which is the idea that certain things just are. Certain things exist. Like, you know, you'll talk to a lot of creative people like artists or whatever, and I think this is what the flow state really is. But in the context of art, this goes for anything. This goes for sports. If you're really good at like math or science or banking or whatever, like the flow state can apply to anything. Anything when you just almost feel like you're not even doing it, you're like channeling something through you. And so probably for me, I would use the example of music. If you've ever written a song, when you truly get into the process of like playing a song and like figuring out where it's going to go, it does it in some points, at the best points. The ideal parts of that process are when it almost feels like the song is writing itself. It almost feels like you're remembering the song. Like the song already exists. This is how the song is supposed to go. And you just happen to be the one writing it. Like you're kind of like, you're hearing a song that exists in the ether and channeling it into reality. That's kind of like the best form of art. And if you talk to artists, whether they're musicians, visual artists, whatever it is that they do, it does feel like in the best moments, that flow state, you're kind of just channeling. You're a conduit. You're a vessel to bring this thing that already exists into reality. And so with that in mind, things like Mickey Mouse and Monopoly Man and all these other things kind of already exist like in the ether, you know, these ideas. And then, you know, they are channeled by whoever, you know, Disney channels this thing that already kind of exists, but they kind of just got it wrong a little bit. So the collective consciousness of the public goes, yeah, I mean, thanks for channeling that. That's pretty close to what we all had in mind collectively, but not quite. Because this thing clearly has suspenders. You know? The collective consciousness is an interesting thing to look into. Maybe we'll talk about that some other time. So I don't know. The Mandela Effect. Interesting. Now interesting. And with that, folks, have a lovely Wednesday, rest of your day. Thanks for joining. As always, new content here on the channel, Monday through Friday, The Daily Show with myself, and of course, LFTS podcast with me and your boy, Eric Glazer on the weekends. Toss us a subscribe. I cannot say that ever. Subscribe, please. Throw us a like, hit us with a comment, whatever you want. Till next time, folks. Peace.